I want you guys to look at money is to look at yourself as a business. I have an Apple phone. Apple is a profitable business. Why? Because they sell products that we all buy. They create revenue. They use expenses like wages. They have to have buildings and products, factories, and all those things. And they make more than what the business expenses coming in are. And so how does that pertain to you? In order to run your business, what are your basic needs? What do you need in order to live? Just basic. And so we're going to talk right now about the needs versus wants. Housing, food, clothes. So those are the basic necessities that any one of us here needs just to function. Where does it get challenging? When you start making those expenses be a little bit more extravagant. So let's talk about luxury items, entertainment, things that we feel that we have to have, but it's more of a want. So that would fit under lifestyle, entertainment, your phone. Some people will say that's a necessity, but unless it impacts your ability to actually live, it is a want. And what do businesses normally do when the expenses get too high? They usually try to cut the highest expenses. They look to find where are the areas where I can save the most money. And so in your case, if you're looking at your budget, the first thing that you want to look for are items that you are not really using or doesn't have a specific purpose in terms of your lifestyle or your necessities. When it comes to debt and credit, it does have a place in your financial world. It's one of those tools that you have to know how to use it. But there's often things that trip us up. And it usually comes again from our environment, the people that has taught us about money, the goals that we set for ourselves. So you may make $40,000, but the lifestyle that you want to live may be 60,000. Yes, you do need a house to live in. Do you need a house that is 500,000 when maybe you should be affording a house that is 150,000? So when you try to put those things in that budget and it doesn't fit, that's where debt management becomes so critical. So that is the importance of having a budget. A financial advisor is also going to help you figure out how much money you're going to need to put away in order to retire at an income level or a lifestyle that you're seeking. So let's say you're making $40,000 a year while you're working and you want to get to a point to where you no longer have to trade your hours for dollars, you no longer have to work, but you want the money that you've set aside to continue to generate that $40,000 a year. So the question becomes, how much money do you have to put away in order to maintain that same $40,000 lifestyle? And so that's where, again, sitting down with a professional and why it's important to start early, because the earlier you start, the least amount of money is needed in order to get to that goal. The longer you wait, the more money you have to do or have to put away simply because of compounding interest. It doesn't get that same amount of time. From the illustration that you saw before, if you start in your 20s, which would be considered day one, as you see, you don't have to put as much away. But if you start at, say, day 15, when you're 40, 45, it means you have to put in that much more money in order to try to maintain that lifestyle level. Here's where I feel a lot of people get tripped up. I know for myself, when I was coming out of school, I remember I went to UCF for college, and I remember one of the first things that I saw going through the student union was a guy at a stand, and he offered a credit card for free pizza. And I was like, that's a no-brainer. Yeah, sure, I'll sign up for this credit card and get this pizza. And what ended up happening, and disclaimer, if there has been a financial mistake to be made, I have probably made it. But it also taught me a lot about financial management as well in the process, which that's what got me involved in financial services. But when it comes to debt and credit, it does have a place in your financial world. Again, it's one of those tools that you have to know how to use it. But there's often things that trip us up, and it usually comes again from our environment, the people that has taught us about money, the goals that we set for ourselves. So you may make $40,000, but the lifestyle that you want to live may be 60,000. So going back to those wants and needs, yes, you do need a house to live in. Do you need a house that is 500,000 when maybe you should be affording a house that is 150,000? Maybe you're looking at a car. Maybe your income says $15,000 car, but no, I want the $30,000 car. So when you try to put those things in that budget and it doesn't fit, that's where debt management becomes so critical. And then also getting things, just ever go to the gas station and instead of just getting gas, you go in there and you get a snack, or you get two snacks, or you go to the grocery store, ever go to the grocery store hungry? I am guilty of doing that. And you start out, I'm just going to get $30 worth of groceries, and you end up leaving out with $130. So that is the importance of having a budget. That is the importance of understanding debt management. So let's say you have racked up this debt, and usually that comes in the form of credit cards or having expenses that no longer have a place in your overall budget. So going back to the illustration of the company, you realize I have too much debt now. Things were going really well, and so I bought a lot more things. And so now things have changed. Either expenses have gone up or maybe your income went down. And what do businesses normally do when the expenses get too high? They usually
They
try to
start
cut the highest expenses. And what
employees,
usually the highest expense, Rolanda?
the employees, laying people off.
Laying people off. If you ever went through a layoff, that's what they do. They look to find where are the areas where I can save the most money and it's not impacting the overall function of my company. And so in your case, if you're looking at your budget, the first thing that you want to look for are items that you are not really using or doesn't have a specific purpose in terms of your lifestyle or your necessities.
Mm-hmm.
And so I try to take that impulse away and out of my hand. And how do I do so? By paying myself first. So if you know that you're going to be receiving some type of income, whether it be through your Social Security disability check or through your job, and you know that you would have normally have money left over at the end of the month, pick a comfortable amount with that money left over. So for easy numbers, let's say you have $200 left over at the end of the month, but that $200 somehow just magically disappears, no clue where it goes. I would say take 100 of that and use the other 100 to do whatever you want with. But take that 100, set up a separate account at a different bank. So if you bank at Truist or Bank of America, set up an account at a different bank, have it direct deposited. So that $100, if you're getting $100 from Social Security, have it go directly to that account. It's going to pay yourself first, just like it would be if you're making an income from your job. You know how you look at your pay stub and you have all these things that's already done come out before you even get a chance to touch your money. Do the same thing with yourself. Set up a separate account, have the money go direct deposited. So every time you get paid, it's out of sight, out of mind. Rolanda, let me ask you a question. What's your favorite food?
I'm a foodie just like you, David. But if I had to narrow it down, I would say probably some pizza.
Pizza. So think of your favorite food item. And let's say you have leftovers and it's in the refrigerator and it is 2 o'clock in the morning and your stomach starts rumbling. I don't know about you, but if it is in my refrigerator and I'm hungry, the likelihood of me going in the middle of the night to go get that food is higher than if it's at the restaurant or at the store. And let's say this store stays open 24 hours. Which one are you more likely to do? Are you more likely to go to your refrigerator or are you more likely to go to the restaurant that's 2 or 3 miles down the street?
I'm going to my refrigerator.
Absolutely. And that's the same analogy when I talk about having a separate bank account. And this bank account has no debit card. So in order for you to go get that money, you would have to go to the branch. And what does that do? In the same way that you can realistically get up, put your clothes on, go to that 24-hour food spot where you get your favorite food, you can do that. It takes more time and effort, but that means you've really thought about this. In the same manner, if you need to go get that money from the bank account, usually it's going to be because it's a serious emergency and it's something that you have thought through. It's just about putting extra barriers between you and those dollars that are supposed to be designed for tomorrow. Usually we find ourselves in trouble because we use debt as an extension of our income. So going back to the story, when I got the credit card from the guy off campus, at UCF, once I had did the same thing, I used all my money from my little serving job and I wanted to go out and hang out with my friends. And I had this credit card. At the time, I thought it was free money. Credit is never free money. Credit is always going to be a loan to use and to pay back. But that would be my thought process. I'm going to use this money and I'm going to pay it back later. Rule of thumb or David's rule, something to write down. If you can't buy it with your own money, don't use the card. You can't afford it. So when do you use credit? When is it appropriate to use debt? And we're going to talk about how to tackle debt if you already have it. Let's see if you can go ahead and go to the next slide.
Guys, you should screenshot this. Great tool.
So before I get into the debt strategies, let's understand credit. So credit is another game within the game of money. The times that you want to use credit is when you need to buy something more than what is in your bank account. And I'm talking about large purchases. So if you're trying to buy a car, trying to buy a home, if you're trying to start a business, those are the times where credit makes sense. It's the sole purpose of it is to leverage it using somebody else's money because it's going to make you more money. Many of us sought secondary education. If you're going off to school, if you've gone to a trade school, it costs money to go to a university. It costs money to get that certificate. Why? It's an investment. And if you've had to use a student loan, the reason being because it's $20,000 in order to get that degree, you get that loan because you know you're going to be making X amount of dollars and hopefully it's double, triple the amount of what that loan was. So you know you're going to pay it back, but it's giving you your rate of return is going to be greater than what you had to put into it. And so when it comes to credit, what makes up a credit score? Your credit score is going to be determined by three bureaus. So there are three companies that essentially tell you what your credit rating is. And your credit score is basically saying to anybody that's willing to loan you money, how safe it is to actually give you money. So if you have a low credit score, which goes from 350 all the way up to 850, the higher the score, the more likely you are to keep your promise that you're going to give that money back. The lower your score, the less likely. If they do approve you to give you some money, they're going to ask for interest on top of it. Why? Because they're going to try to get as much as they can before you possibly default on your money. And so there's five things that's going to determine your credit score. 35% is just your ability to pay on time. So if you have a credit card, it's important if you swipe that card and it's $100 on that you swiped on that card, make sure that you're paying at least the minimum that's required from that company to be on time. If you're not on time, your credit score can be impacted by up to 35%. So if you have a 700 credit score and you miss one payment, take 35% of 700 and it can potentially drop you that much. The next biggest item is capacity. So let's say that you have a credit limit on your card of $1,000. The amount of usage on that card is so important. You never want to use 30% or more of your credit. Reason being, you're telling the credit card company that I'm just using this to build credit. If you're using more than 30%, actually, if you're using more than 50%, you're telling them that I'm now relying on this. And it becomes a ding on your credit score, and they can ding you up to 30%. Between 31 and 49%, it doesn't affect you negatively or positively, but don't get over 50%. Always try to keep it under 30% and it will raise your score. Next thing is the length of credit. So never let your accounts close out. Try to keep them open as long as possible. If you've had something for 10 years and you don't really use the card, bring up one thing, pay it off just to keep that card open. And the other two is just having a mix of credit. So installment credit, revolving. So if you have a bank loan, having a credit card, having a home, the more mix of credit you have, the better, is because it's saying that you can handle different types of loans. And the other is the accumulation, the number of credit inquiries, and when you've opened it. So when you think of credit, the easiest way to not get in trouble is if you have a bill, let's say you have a phone bill, put it on that credit card and pay it the same way you would out your bank account. Let's go to the next slide. So our debt strategies. If you're in debt, there's four ways that you can eliminate it. So go back to that budget, see what you can reduce or eliminate from your budget. Maybe you don't need Netflix. Maybe you don't need to go to the dry cleaners as much. cutting that down. Find those wants that are overabundant in your budget, try to reduce it or eliminate it. Look at your insurances, like your car insurance. Try to shop that every year. Any expense that gets higher, see if you can find a cheaper version of it. Consolidating. If you have a good credit score and you have a bunch of different debts, sometimes it's good to go to your bank and ask for a consolidated loan to get maybe 5 different debts put into one loan with one interest rate and hopefully a lower interest rate. The snowball effect. The snowball effect works. Let's say you have those 5 different credit cards. You start with the one with the smallest balance, paid it off, use what you were paying from that one balance and combine it with the next bill that was the second to smallest, then roll that into the next one. And as you pay them off, you get bigger and bigger with the amount. And the reason why the snowball effect is a good method is because you get easy wins. If you have a small, let's say $100 credit card bill, just knowing that you got one off the block and you only have 4 more to go, sometimes motivates people more than doing which is the mathematical way of doing it, which is starting with the largest interest. It may take you a little longer, but you're not paying your creditor more because with the interest, let's say you have an interest rate of 25% on your credit card, that means they're taking 25 cents of every dollar in addition to what you owe. However, you're not paying as much in the long term. So those are the 4 debt strategies that I would recommend if you find yourself in debt. And then to the last slide, which will be some helpful links for everyone. If you are on disability, there is actually an account with the company organization called Able Now. That link will take you and see if you're eligible. There are different types of savings and investment accounts specifically for those who have qualified disability. And what that does is you can put that money in savings and invest that money, and you can actually pull it out for expense related purposes for disabilities. And if you go on the site, it'll tell you all of the different type of expenses that can be covered. And it's pretty much for everyday things. Goodwill, the company that I work for, is a great place. We hire a lot of folks that have different types of disabilities. The entry to get in is not strenuous at all, and we welcome. We have a team of guys that work with folks who have different disabilities to give them the same opportunities of working and making a wage for themselves. And if you want to learn on your own, you can go to the FDIC website, Money Smart for Adults, and it gives you the same information, same different or same types of slides that can help you learn different strategies for saving, investing, budgeting, and dealing with debt. I know that was a lot, but that, I believe, is all. I want to thank you again for your time. I apologize, I know we ran a little bit over.
Well, no, this was great information. Everybody, let's give David a round of applause for sharing the valuable information with us. So don't forget to do your survey. The QR code is right here on the screen. Thank you so much, David, for giving us your time and sharing your expertise.
Absolutely. Thank you.
You guys know that those of you who are here on a regular basis know that we do this every other week. Our next one is going to be about affordable housing and home buying. We're going to make sure that now that you've had your talk about money, cha-ching, you're putting your money in the right place so that you can start planning for those long-term goals you have. All right, I'm going to stop sharing. I think we're all done. You guys have a great night. It was good to see you, and I'll see you next time. Bye.